Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my notes, since you've been talking, I've written word gap about 5 times, so I'm going to talk about gaps. General Gale, do we have a sensor gap at NORAD? We learn more from failures than we do from successes. What did we learn from the balloon incursion about the adequacy of our sensors, which is essentially the basis of NORAD?
Senator, we learned a great deal. To the gaps, what we have is we had some gaps in the layered approach where we want to be able to detect with domain awareness from satellites down to traditional air sensors.
One of the problems is low altitude, isn't it?
That's right, sir, all the way down to the surface and then even in the undersea. We were able to address many of those on initiatives that were started by my predecessor, General Van Herk, by changing the sensitivity of the radars that we do have. And that has allowed us to have better domain awareness in that regime that you mentioned. However, there are some gaps that will be manifesting in the near future. Those are currently scheduled to be addressed by the over-the-horizon radar, by the HBTSS, which is the hypersonic and ballistic tracking space system. Those capabilities are essential to fill gaps that are growing because of the increased capability of the adversaries.
I would suggest that that's an urgent need, given the experience that we've had, but also given the incredible militarization of the Arctic coast by Russia and the development of drone technology. All those things added together create a significant risk. I hope you can come to us with what you need, because this is something we need to do in a hurry. We can't wait 5 years to develop this capacity.
Senator, I will.
We also have an icebreaker gap.
Yes, sir.
In terms of our ability to operate in the Arctic. As the Arctic Ocean opens up, it's becoming, as I mentioned, more militarized by the Russians and a much more important body of water. It's like we've suddenly discovered the Mediterranean Sea. Talk to me about icebreakers. We only have 1.5 icebreakers, heavy icebreakers in the Arctic.
That's correct, Senator, and that is we're severely outnumbered. We appreciate the Coast Guard's.
Yeah, I'd say 40 to 1 is outnumbered. That's the approximate number that the Russians have.
Yes, Senator, and the Chinese declaring themselves a near Arctic nation.
Yeah, I noticed when the Chinese declared themselves a near Arctic nation, my position is that Maine is a near Caribbean state. I mean, it's just logic.
I share your views, sir. We do appreciate that the Coast Guard is procuring more icebreakers, but even with those, we'll be severely outnumbered, and that does limit our freedom of maneuver in that region.
It's basically like not having a road to get where you need to get.
Yes.
General Richardson, let's talk about another gap, drugs. Since we've been sitting here, about 10 Americans have died of drug overdoses, just since we began this meeting 45 minutes ago. One person a day is dying in my home state of Maine. Do you have the capacity to interdict drug shipments coming in by sea that we know of? I've asked this question every year for about the past 10 years, and I'm afraid I know the answer.
And Senator, so in U.S. Southcom, we have the detection and monitoring mission, and that is to gain the intelligence for
I shouldn't
drug
have said,
shipments.
do you have the capacity? Does the country? You have the terrific capacity for intelligence and identification. My concern is, once we know about a dangerous shipment, then do we have the capacity to interdict it?
And so we pass that intelligence over to law enforcement or our partner nations, and it depends on who's close enough to do that. And so in terms of the capacity, we anticipate that we're able to, of what we know is out there, interdict about 10% of the known problem, and with the resourcing and capabilities that we currently are given.
I would emphasize that figure to our colleagues. We can interdict 10% of what we know of. That's inexcusable, and I don't mean it's inexcusable for you, but one of the problems that strikes me is when everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge, and you've got yourself, DEA, DHS, the intelligence community, and the problem is Americans are dying. in about every 10 days, we have September 11th. 3,000 people die in this country every 10 days. And you use the word in your testimony, assault. And that's what it is. It's an assault. But we're treating it as a kind of domestic law enforcement problem when it's an assault. And most of it is coming from outside of our country. So I hope that you will work with your colleagues, perhaps form a task group to get after this problem of interdiction. And if we don't have capacity, if we don't have enough Coast Guard cutters, or DHS doesn't have the capacity, tell us, because we can't solve a problem if we don't know what it is. We know the general shape of the problem, but you're in a position to tell us what's missing and what you can do in order to help protect this country.
And Senator, I would offer that that we can't interdict our way out of this problem, and we've got to be able to go after the networks. We've got to be able to go after the drug labs. We've got to be able to follow the money and the money laundering, which is fueling this very rich environment that the transnational criminal organizations.
Totally agree, and we have to talk about the demand side here and treatment and prevention. I totally agree with that, but this is a discrete problem that I think we do have some capacity to deal with. Final question, this isn't about a gap, but what is your overall assessment of the Chinese incursion into Latin America? Specifically, they've been doing this for some time, doing infrastructure projects. In other parts of the world, there's some development of buyer's remorse, that the Chinese haven't performed as they were expected, that the debt colonialism is becoming a problem. Is that occurring in Latin America in your view?
Absolutely, Senator. And my concern as a combatant commander for the region, and 22 of 31 countries in the region have signed on to the Belt and Road Initiative. But it's all investment, a lot of investment in critical infrastructure where the big money projects are. That's deep water ports, 5G, space, safe city, smart city technology to be able to spy on the populations. And so it's with these state-owned enterprises from the PRC, and my concern is being able to use those for military application if required, and it's in all of the critical infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King.